Hello, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to a historical humans heritage episode. We are back and we are looking at the UNESCO World Heritage Site of Paphos, a Cyprian site, right? Is that the proper terminology?
Well,
Cyprot?
Cypriot? Cypriot?
the I believe it is a Mycenaean site specifically on Cyprus.
Ooh.
So the Mycenaeans
Ooh.
were a ancient Greek people before we get to the Greeks we know and love from classical history. They were thriving about 4,000, 5,000 years ago. And their culture is kind of the proto-Greek culture. It's a little bit of Greek gods, a little bit of Greek mythos, a little bit of Greek architecture, but also a lot of things that aren't. And so these sites here on Cyprus kind of show sort of an adjoining route
Mm.
from the cultures and the cradles of the Egyptian Nile and Mesopotamia into what would be Greece and the Greeks. The UNESCO World Heritage Site here today is a very fun one because it centers around the worship of Aphrodite and a bunch of proto
Mm.
Aphrodite fertility gods. Because,
So,
We
yeah.
love the fertility gods.
so are they so like did they all three fuse into becoming Aphrodite or
So I think the UNESCO site is three different locations that each was a different temple.
but they
And
all eventually became associated?
yeah, all the temples were eventually associated with Aphrodite, I think. It's just, some of them predate the worship of Aphrodite and instead have at their very base bottom random Mycenaean or Eastern fertility gods. Yep. And
Yeah.
Aphrodite is quite literally the goddess of sex, drugs, and rock and roll because those are her domains.
I mean, honestly, you gotta respect it. You gotta love it. And these sites are honestly beautiful. I mean, most of them are overlooking the sea. Ah, beautiful, stunning.
Yeah.
And who doesn't love Aphrodite in all her smart beauty, wisdom, rock and roll?
Yep.
There's a cult specifically dedicated to her ass.
And honestly,
That's awesome.
You think I'm joking?
yeah, one of the funny things about that, and honestly about this site in particular, is it shows several of the things that are found here show a pre-Homeric Aphrodite. Aphrodite, as it kind of turns out, wasn't the, shall we say, ideal of feminine beauty until Homer wrote about her that way.
So,
And
because Homer simped, people now think of her as beautiful.
yes, thank you.
Does explain why she really likes Aries though.
Yeah. Ares, or wasn't it Hephaestus?
So
Was
she's
the
married to Festus as like punishment or whatever, but
She's married to Hephaestus and she gets punished for cheating on him with Ares.
Which
yeah, she doesn't get
Hephaestus,
punished.
for those of you who are uninitiated, is the ugly god who was pushed off of Mount Olympus and is the blacksmith of the gods,
No, no,
basically.
no. He wasn't pushed. Hera was like, "Oh my God, this child is ugly," and threw him.
Yeah.
Either way, he was thrown off of Mount Olympus, and it didn't make him prettier. That's for darn tootin'.
Earn the respect of the Spartans real quick, because anyone who can survive getting chucked off a mountain has a place with them.
Well, that and he helped make their weaponry, so that also helps.
Yeah, but
But
yeah.
yeah, she really likes Aries.
Everyone likes Ares. Everyone loves the bad boys.
No, they don't. No one else likes. Aries. It's always weird.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, there was, yeah, I remember there was something that did a very fun breakdown of it. It was like, I'm the god of war. Conflict follows me everywhere. Are you sure that's not just you being a gigantic ass?
The jury's still out on that one for whatever reason.
But yeah, no. So what makes some of these things exceptional is that not only are these sites unique in terms of being these ancient temples from 4,000, 5,000 years ago that have survived on this island, but they show us all the pre-Aphrodites, including some that aren't, and that's always fun seeing that sort of crossroads, that proof that things are traveling from east to west and west to east. This sort of cultural dialogue.
How these
Also,
ideals can shape and morph and basically be disseminated too.
it's kind of weird thinking about how ancient Homer is to us, but
Mm-hmm.
the deity is like that would have been a that would have been there before
Yeah,
Homer's time would have been ancient to him.
yeah, because these these temples, the earliest ones, are 5,000 years old. Homer is less than is I want to say he's less than 3,000 years old. He's maybe 3,000 at his oldest. Homer's writings are 2,600 years old.
Yeah, yeah.
Like the first written set form of it is 2,600 because it was an oral tradition for centuries. So 5,000, you got about 2,000 years of people worshiping things before
Yeah.
Homer comes along and gives the official script.
And that all links back to this as a UNESCO site that has a couple of archaeological components that include sacred cities, the Tomb of Kings, Aphrodite Sanctuary, a ton of different temples and things like that, which is kind of cool because you can see how Aphrodite evolved over this time, how pictures and projections of her change and shift, and how they
Yeah,
really do vary. And this has been continuously inhabited since pretty much the Neolithic period.
yeah. The earliest depiction they have for a fertility deity here is 8,000 years old. That is extremely, extremely old.
I mean, Aphrodite's birthplace on Cyprus was where her temple was erected by the Mycenaeans in the 12th century BC,
Yeah,
and it was
yeah,
continuously used up until the Roman period.
yeah, yeah. Fun, yeah. Like fun fact, the depictions of Aphrodite on these in this UNESCO World Heritage Site predate the Great Pyramids.
Yeah, that doesn't surprise me
So
whatsoever.
yeah, it's like like that's usually a benchmark for what people think of as ancient of ancient, even though it's kind of not. And just drive home just how long people have been working on what we understand to be Aphrodite. All that for one goddess.
Hmm.
And it's
Takes a
just
lot.
interesting because of that and because of how well the remains are preserved, it holds very high integrity and the authenticity is one of a kind. There are some issues with a lot of their conservation or the fact that there's not really a buffer zone to the site, but it's overall in really good protection and has quite a few different layers of protection law in place.
Oh yeah, definitely. The Getty Conservation Institute had a project that ended in 2004 and you know didn't really have anything to replace it until 2011. So there is definitely issues with preservation, like you said, buffer zones, funding, regulations. There it's definitely intermittent, but people are trying. And that's the important part is that people are trying to get these things in place. They're just not sticking.
And one of the things that is huge that I always highlight is there is a management plan in place and a overall master plan that has been implemented and in place since 1991 that will help care for the site and help work with conservation, promotion, and preservation of the property. along with following guidelines from the Department of Antiquities. So overall, it maintains and continues to sustain that outstanding universal value over time, and it really is a one of a kind site that gives us an insight into such a major monumental portion of history in a lot of ways. I mean, ancient Greece is one that is idolized and looked out upon in so many different cultures
Yeah.
across the world.
Is yeah, no, ancient Greece does a lot, and like this is key because it shows us where all these things that we take for granted as being culturally iconic of a specific time and place, it shows us that their roots go deeper. They are much older than we could have realized. They are much different and more diverse in origin than we could have realized. That everything comes from everything else because people like to think of Aphrodite the same way the myth does. She spawned from a clam out the sea one day
Uh,
and onto the
Clam.
and it's that's not what happened. That's a wonderful story. That's not how we get Aphrodite. And it's living proof that this is true of all things. And that's what I think really makes it important.
So yeah, kind of a cool little interesting site. I actually think that's probably a great point for us to wrap up today's episode. Thank you guys for watching. If you have any questions or let us know what you think down below, and we'll see you in the next one. Peace.